Have you ever wondered why the rich get richer and others don't? Could it be that a small percentage of the population seek out others to find, study, and execute on legal loopholes that exist within our financial life and make it easier for them to prosper? The answer is a resounding yes. This is the Secrets of the Wealthy podcast with John Mintz. John has spent a lifetime researching and mastering the financial loopholes that he believes should be available to everyone. Join us as we explore different strategies that help you get farther faster towards building and enjoying a prosperous retirement.
Hello and welcome to the Secrets of the Wealthy with John Mintz. John, what's going on?
Oh, it's May 2023. Sun is shining. It's a great day. How about you?
It is fantastic outside. I'm expecting some thunderstorms today, which I love, but you know, it's Cinco de Mayo today, and we have a huge party at the house. My wife's been cooking for 4 days, and we're hoping it doesn't get rained out. So,
oh wow, well I hope so too.
Are you celebrating?
I'm celebrating by driving about 3 hours to Nacogdoches, Texas, to watch my youngest daughter's boyfriend graduate from
right on.
Stephen F. Austin. So yeah, that's how I'm celebrating the weekend.
Congrats. That is fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, with all that going on, you still had time to podcast today, and you like to start off with like a market recap. So what's going on?
Well, I do, but I wanted to reminisce a little bit because, you know, when you get our age, me being older than you, time just, goes fast, right? And I can't believe this is episode 32, but even bigger than that is this is the exact day 2 years ago that we aired our first show.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, happy anniversary, man.
I know. Thank you for putting up with me for 2 years, but it's been a lot of fun, and I just can't believe it's already been 2 years. So, and Cinco de Mayo one time over. So good.
Yeah. Here's the thing. I get educated every time I'm on the podcast with you. I know you do this for the audience, but I'm along for the ride and I learn a ton.
Well, good. You need to learn a few things, I think. So that's good.
I do.
Oh, okay. Well, hey, today I do want to do a quick market recap. It will be briefer than usual, but just to kind of recap the year to date, three major indices. The Dow is flat for the year. This is as of close of business yesterday. The S&P is up about 5.7%, and the NASDAQ up about 14%. Last year, 2022, the Dow was down 10%. I'm rounding down. The S&P was down 20%, and the NASDAQ was down 31%. So obviously all three markets indices are a far cry from getting back to where they were at their previous highs. But what's really interesting, the last show we talked about, just real briefly, we talked about the last time we had a market update. We talked about it. I thought the markets might be showing a little signs of strength, but I was uncertain. And so I did a little bit more research before I got on today and found some really interesting things. So May 5th, something about the day, May 5th, I don't know what it is, but May 5th last year, so same day as today, exactly 1 year ago, the S&P 500 sat at 4,123. Today, as we speak at this moment, which is May 5th, a year later, the S&P sat at 4,123. Today, it sits at 4,123.
Really?
Exactly the same. So it's, even though there's been a lot of volatility along the way over the last year, it's moving in a sideways pattern for sure. And for example, August 15th of last year, it was 43.05. February 2nd of this year is 41.79. And today, 41.23. So it's just kind of up and down, up and down, up and down, up and down, moving sideways. And I think on a different podcast, different show, I might have mentioned the Dow from 1966 to 1982 went nowhere, 16 years. So, I'd like to hope that that's not going to be the case here. I don't think it's going to be the case here. And I do think that the markets are starting to show some signs of strength. The only thing the only hurdle in our way is markets don't usually respond well to recessions. And we've got all sorts of symptoms the biggest one being massive layoffs that are starting to pile up now. But markets never seem to respond well to that. I think we might just have one more hurdle to get through, and then we might be able to finally talk positive about the markets for a while. So let's hope.
Well, that would be
Yeah. Yes. So there's your market recap, my friend.
all right. I know you got something special planned for today's podcast.
We do. We do. Well, the subject for today is Social Security secrets, and just we're going to recap Social Security and what it means to folks. And again, as always, Eric, we don't expect what we cover to apply to everyone, to all the listeners. We just hope that folks can get just one thing. If they can just get one thing that they didn't know before, one little tidbit of knowledge that'll help them with their retirement or help them with their financial future, then we've scored, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so today I've decided to bring on a guest, and it happens to be someone from my office, and I refer to him with clients in my office as our in-house resident expert as it relates to Social Security. So I couldn't think of a better person to be talking to, but it also gives me a chance to introduce him to you. I'm going to introduce to you today Jeremy Pillow, and I'm really excited to introduce him. He's been my senior advisor at a firm for 2 of the past 3 years now. But more importantly, he's my son-in-law. And if I could just give him a brief introduction, then I'll let him tell the audience a little bit about himself. But when you have kids, Eric, and when your kids are growing up and they're becoming adults, and especially your girls, I have 2 girls. There's 2 things that you wish for as a man. I think one of those is that God will give you a good wife that'll make yourself a better man, to keep you between the white lines, as we say. But the second one is that God will bring a good man to take care of your daughters.
Amen. That's right.
And I can tell you, and I'll try not to get emotional, but man, I could not have prayed for a better man than Jeremy. And that's not smoke. He has a genuine care for people in general, especially my daughter. But I think that's going to come out today. He works really hard at his trade, and he works really hard for the people that he's responsible for. So I'm going to let him tell us a little bit more about himself, and then we'll go from there. Jeremy?
Yeah, no, I agree. John, just so the audience knows, Jeremy and I were on before you joined the call, and I tried to get him to tell me anything about his father-in-law, and he didn't give up anything. So that's a great son-in-law right there. I'm telling you.
I didn't even have to pay him.
That's right. Not this time.
No, you're right.
All right. Well, I'm looking forward to the conversation.
Good. Well, Jeremy, tell the audience a little bit about yourself.
Well, holy cow! How do I top what you already talked about? I appreciate all of the kind words, of course, from you, John, and it's a pleasure to be here with both you and Eric. I didn't know I was going to be the third wheel of such an important day today, you guys' podcast anniversary. So that's exciting. And I've always had the passion for teaching and education. I don't know how normal that is or not, to know in middle school, junior high, that I want to be a teacher, but that's how my life rolled. So I didn't know what I was going to teach yet. I was going to be a coach, or I was going to be a musician and a director, and life unfolded, and I ended up being a high school orchestra teacher and did that for many years. Loved the passion, helping people, making a difference, sharing my passion, what I worked so hard at, with others. And then I finally got the opportunity from John here to take that teaching aspect and education to the next level with just a different clientele, which is super exciting. So I'm still doing what I set out to do in the 7th grade, crazy enough, just a different topic. So it's really exciting for me to be here. And of course, as he mentioned, I got the opportunity to marry his beautiful daughter, Brittany, and just be welcomed into this wonderful family. So it's a pleasure to be here, and I'm excited to get into today's topic with you guys.
Awesome. Well, thanks for sharing it. So we're here to talk about Social Security. Enough about us, Jeremy. Let's see if we can't help the folks listening. But let's talk about Social Security. I think we need to start with, as I usually do, I start with the problems that exist, and then we try to provide some solutions so that folks can, come away from this better than when they came. So if you could take a little bit of time to get us some bits as it relates to Social Security and the problems that exist with Social Security right now.
Yeah, of course. And the interesting thing is, I don't think anybody that might be listening, or you guys, is going to say, I didn't know there was any worry. Obviously it's all over the media right now. Lots of doubt, and there's good valid reason for that. The biggest fear of retirees in retirement is outliving their retirement funds. And 1 out of 3 Americans use Social Security as their primary source of income. This isn't the first time that you've heard this, as I said, but in the coming years, more specifically, we've heard the year 2033 thrown out. Social Security is expected to face a major funding shortfall. From the surface, it's simple to think about, just like household expenses. You need more coming in than going out. And that's what ultimately Social Security is going to be facing here, if not already. The Social Security program, they get the bulk of their revenue from payroll taxes. And of course, we're now thinking about the baby boomers and where they're at in their lifetime. They're getting ready to retire, if they haven't started already. So when there's more coming out than going in, there's the problem you just mentioned. Eventually, something has to be done about that. And then you have to start pulling from reserves. And how are the reserves going to be affected? How much is going to have to come out? Eventually, there's going to be more people taking out than putting in to Social Security. Mm-hmm. And, this is supposed to be the year where they're expecting, to the tune of $40 billion, that this is projected to happen, where more's going out than what's coming in. Mm-hmm. So that, of course, is kind of scary. It's happened one time between the years of 1984 and 2020. Just 1 year. Every other year, there was a surplus. And again, we're expecting that to happen here in 2023. And now they have to figure out how to do something with it.
Yeah. You think? Well, I like how you put that in a way that is kind of easy to understand, because Social Security can be kind of complicated, more than folks think it is. But so here, if I can just add to what you just said. So 2033, I've heard that number also, but my own personal opinion is it's going to be sooner. And the reason is because it seems like we're accelerating everything, including the amount of Social Security that's being drawn due to inflation, right? Because Social Security is tied to the CPI, the inflation numbers. And so if inflation percentages go up, people have their Social Security checks go up, which means we're drawing more, but we're not giving more. We're not, right. Adding to it more. And so I think it's going to be sooner. But the last number I saw, which came from the Social Security Division itself, was the estimate, the Congressional Budget Office, estimated that one of two things is probably going to have to happen as we approach this zero number, as we approach this default year, whatever that's going to be. One of those is it would take a 25% reduction in benefits across the board. So if you're getting paid $2,000 a month in Social Security, then your next month's check would be $1,500 ongoing. And so that's across the board. That's what it would take to keep Social Security going at that point. Or the second one would be possibly what's called means testing. Now, if you Google means testing, you can get a lot of different definitions. And I pulled this from Google only because I think it's a little easier to understand. But here's what Google says. In its simplest form, means testing would look at the annual income of Social Security beneficiaries and determine, based on that income, whether they'd receive a reduced benefit check or no benefit check at all. So, that's pretty serious. And, and that you can move that needle, whether someone makes a lot or a little is subject to the person reviewing it, I guess. Right. So I think at minimum, this poses a big problem. We all know it's a problem. And as planners, we have to help folks try to plan for the possibilities, or more likely probability that there's going to be some sort of reduction somewhere along the way.
Right. When we talk with people now, they come in and we bring up the fact of Social Security. If they're older, they just kind of laugh. They don't know how it's going to be affected, but they all believe something negative is going to happen to their Social Security.
Sure.
And then when we're talking to somebody younger and Social Security comes up, their first thing is if it's even there. Nobody believes in it, and it's all just affected by everything that's going on, and everything you just mentioned proves that.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Well, we know we have a problem, obviously. So why don't we start talking about maybe some secrets? And to some folks, these may not be secrets, but to others, they may be. And like I said, if we can just change or help one family, one couple, one individual, we've done our job today. But so let's talk a little bit about some things and that we can be doing, or folks could be doing, to enhance their Social Security and optimize what they're going to be collecting. So go ahead, Jeremy.
Yeah, well, the secret is to understand it. And there's no way, John mentioned, we have a short period of time here, 20 to 30 minutes. You're not going to learn everything there is to know about Social Security, and that's certainly not the goal. But it's just to educate you that there are other options. And as far as how you are filing, what time you file, whether you work a little bit longer and start Social Security later, whether your spouse is able to push theirs off a little bit further to take advantage of the spousal benefit. And everybody's situation, there's no cookie cut answer for this as really anything, because everybody's situation's different, their working years, how much they've put in. So understanding how your situation and getting the information necessary to figure out what's going to be most beneficial for you and your household is the first secret. And most people kind of fall into the norm, if you will, of, okay, I retired, time to start taking Social Security. And a lot of people just take that at face value for what it is, as in, this is just what you do. And I think that's the biggest pitfall right there that people can do, is just accepting the way it is, or the coworker that retired a month before and told them how they're doing it. So that's all they've heard, and they're going to do it that way.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's just so much benefit in understanding, or at least chatting with somebody who can dive a little bit deeper with you in your situation to figure out what's best for you over the long term. Because most people are looking at the micro approach, which we talk about lots, and it's not what you're getting this year. You have to run it out until you're age 90 or whatever your estimated life expectancy is, which is going up every single year.
Yeah, for sure. Well, let me give you a real life example, just to kind of go with that might help folks take what we're talking about and put it real life into how it might apply to them. So I had a single lady, mother of three kids, three older adult kids. And so single lady came into our office last month, and she had retired. She's 59, or she was wanting to retire. She was 59. She'd received a little inheritance, and she had enough money. And we helped basically figure out that she did not have to go back to work. So she was given an early leave package, and wanted to know, hey, can I just hang it up and spend time enjoying my family and my kids, my grandkids? So we were able to help her do that. But more importantly, she wanted us to help her figure out when she should start Social Security. Now, remember, she's 59, right? And so the earliest that she could collect was 62. And the latest that she would want to collect is 70, because the numbers don't get any better after that age. And so what we did is we ran analysis to see how much she would collect if she started at 62, assuming just average cost of living adjustments on her Social Security, through age 90, 28 years. We just did this last month. And then we had another one that we ran for her from age 70 to age 90, again, assuming she's going to live to age 90. So in the first scenario, she would collect Social Security for 28 years, and she would collect an estimated $1.239 million, 1,239,000 rounded down. Okay. Sounds like a lot, but that's a lot of years too. 28 years, right? But if she waited till age 70, collected 8 years less, because she's collecting 70 through 90 now versus 62 through 90, collect 8 years less, but she would now collect $1 $1,756,000. So $520,000 more collected just by waiting that period of time, assuming she's in good health and all that good stuff and expects to live that long. So the moral of the story is, and that was a pretty simple one. Sometimes we have some that are much more complicated, but how you collect does make a difference. So the next question people are probably thinking, well, what is she going to do from age 59 to 70? Well, again, she had some good assets. And so we're going to use those assets to bridge the gap between age 59 and 70 for her. And basically, she didn't really need that much. So we're just going to have to draw down a little bit from the growth that she's going to be achieving inside of those assets and get her there. And because she has a big, big, big fat heart, and she really wants to leave a lot behind to her family, and that's going to allow her to do that. So sorry, that was kind of a long story, but I think it helps people understand that, it really does matter the little things that you do in your retirement plan. So,
one of the things
all right,
you mentioned, John,
go ahead,
if you don't mind. Yeah. What you mentioned, the cost of living adjustment, and then obviously you went through the results of the math, but I've seen people that come in with their statements and they try to figure out the math on their own because they're trying to figure out when should I collect, which is great. But when you're looking at a Social Security statement, you see today's numbers and the projections, but what's not included in the projections is any kind of cost of living, which has been huge the last 2 years at, close to 6% and over 8%. So when you took that average of the cost of living adjustment and worked that into the formula to increase that number over time as well, it really helps get a much more clear picture and shows the result isn't quite as black and white as the statement makes it look all the time.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, we see them come in with Excel spreadsheets and yellow pads and all kinds of stuff. But there's just a lot of things that they just don't know and they're not able to take into consideration. That's a good point. Like spousal benefits you mentioned earlier. Nobody knows how to account for those. Talk to us a little bit before I kind of talk about segue into maybe some alternatives for folks. Talk to us a little bit. You being a former teacher and you work with a lot of teachers that, are referred to us. So what is it? Is there some hot buttons or is there some gotchas that the teachers need to be looking out for it as it relates to Social Security?
Hot buttons for sure. I would say that it's about half and half. Some people just don't realize that some of these provisions exist. And the other ones, again, they've heard about it, but they don't really understand how it's going to affect them until they just wait and see and find out. So for teachers specifically, they have the teacher retirement system. And if that's all you have, then that's your pension, which is great. But there's sometimes where teachers have taught for 10 years and they got into a different career maybe and taught for 20 years and then went back to teaching so that they could have summers with their grandchildren or whatever it is. Well, now they apply or they're able to apply for both Social Security and the teacher retirement system pension. But you didn't pay into both during the same years, which is the catch that they're not going to let you double dip, basically. And so understanding there is a formula and it's not, again, black and white, and it's based off of when we do the analysis, we're inputting every earning year that they paid into Social Security and taking their teacher retirement system pension, and then coming up with, okay, you're going to get this full pension, but here's what your Social Security is going to get cut down to. And if you think you're going to get full Social Security and TRS, you're going to be retiring really, really happy till you get your first paycheck, and you realize that, wait a second, I don't have enough, and we have a problem here. So that's just one example. The government pension offset affects people as well as the windfall elimination provision, and how those work with the spousal benefit, how those affect your taxes ongoing. There's just so many variables that, of course, we don't have time to get into each of those, but that's just one example of how complicated it can get, and it can throw you for a loop if you're not prepared.
Yeah. Well, we're running out of time. Let's try to wrap this up. Is there anything as far as it's Social Security? Obviously, for most folks, they can't live just off Social Security. So, could you talk to us a little bit about Social Security alone by itself isn't a good idea, and why?
Yeah, I think I mentioned earlier that so 1 in 3 Americans use their Social Security for their primary income source, but an even bigger number, 60%, close to that, those people rely on Social Security.
Oh, wow.
So there's a difference there, if you're relying on it versus if it's just a primary income source, but you have these external sources of income coming in that clearly, based on those numbers, most people don't. Social Security, when it was created, it wasn't meant to be the only source of income. That's why you go from making $100,000 a year to now you only have $40,000 a year.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes you're expected to just take that loss in your lifestyle. But that's not always necessarily the case. And I know, John, we look at that all the time and help people figure out how to bridge that gap one way or the other. So I know,
well, I don't know about you, but I don't plan on taking a pay cut in retirement.
No, that doesn't sound fun at all. You plan on probably spending more if I know you well enough.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So, I mean, you throw what you just said on top of the fact that we're seeing fewer and fewer people retirees coming into our office actually has a pension. That's almost a dinosaur anymore, folks that have a pension. And so the old three-legged stool would be, you have Social Security and you have pension, and then you have an asset, that would supplement those two incomes. But that's if we're saying, you're talking about the youngins who say, well, we don't plan on having Social Security, and they obviously don't have a pension. They got themselves, right? That's all they got to rely on. And so if that's the case, they better be saving quite a bit and preparing, right? But there's other ways to supplement Social Security. And, one of those is guaranteed retirement income. And there's many, many different ways to do that. With the rising interest rates, you can use CD ladders for that. You can use treasury ladders for that. You can use guaranteed income annuities, which is what a pension is. A pension is annuity. If you look on the paperwork, there's so many different ways to supplement that Social Security with existing assets or building assets. And I think that's something that folks need to be looking at. We try to tell people they should have no less than 3 streams of passive income that they can't outlive. And if they don't have that, we try to create that for them. So if you are one of those that don't have that and you need to talk to somebody, we'd love to chat with you. But so here's how I would close this out, Eric, but and then we'll field any questions you may have. But at the end of the day, you have to have a plan. I think I forgot who said it. If you fail to plan, you might as well plan to fail, right? And I think Jeremy's made it crystal clear here that, the folks that don't know what they don't know, they need to know what they don't know. Did that make sense? I might have just captured something there. I should coin that phrase. So anyway, I think it's important that they be talking to someone about Social Security, about Medicare, and about these things that are pretty complicated. They're made to seem not complicated, but they're very complex. And unless you have somebody that knows what they're doing, helping you, you're probably going to miss out on, well, in the case of the lady I mentioned earlier, over $500,000. So, Eric, I think that's enough for today. It sounds like we could have a whole nother part 2 on this. I don't know if we will or not, but can you help us wrap this up, Eric? Do you have questions at all?
I don't have a question. It's just an observation because, John, we've talked about this many times on the podcast. Everything is so individualized, and Social Security is no different. I mean, and the funny thing is that you were talking about the 3-legged stool. This is just one small piece of the overall plan, which you've talked about many times. People need to have conversations. The math is not the same for everybody, right? Life expectancy isn't going to be the same for everybody. There's
Mm-hmm.
all sorts of history there that needs to be looked into. There's all sorts of other things, right? Somebody could have some rental properties. Somebody could have a business that they've sold. An inheritance, I believe, is what happened in this young woman's situation that retired a bit early. Mm-hmm. So there's so many factors that they have to bring to the table to somebody like yourself, like Jeremy, to be able to say, here's all my stuff. Help me figure out what's best for me specifically. So yes, you could have 3, 4, 5 more podcasts on this, but it's still not going to give them the answers that they need to seek out for themselves, which That's means true. They need to make a phone call. So how do they get a hold of Jeremy, or how do they get a hold of you to begin this conversation to say, hey, I'm a unique person. My situation is unlike anybody else's. Can you help me figure my scenario out?
Well, the phone number to our main office is 817-225-6260. And we actually answer our phone. We won't get a voicemail. And we'd love to talk to anybody that feels like they need direction.
Fantastic. Jeremy, thank you so much for being such a great guest on the show today. Of course, John wouldn't be here without you. You facilitate this and host this show for the purpose of educating the audience. And again, I appreciate that so much. And of course, our last thank you goes to you, the listening audience. Thank you so much for tuning in and listening to the Secrets of the Wealthy podcast with John Mintz. If you have not subscribed to the podcast yet, please click the subscribe now button below. This way, when John comes out with a new podcast, it'll show up directly on your listening device. We humbly ask that you share this podcast, rate it, and leave a review, as this actually does help others find the show. Again, thank you so much for listening today. For everyone at the Secrets of the Wealthy, this is Eric Johnson reminding you to live your best day every day. And we'll see you next time.
Thank you for listening to the Secrets of the Wealthy podcast with John Mintz. Click the subscribe button below to be notified when new episodes become available. The information covered and posted represents the views and opinions of the guest and does not necessarily represent the views or opinions of John Mintz. The content has been made available for informational and educational purposes only. The content is not intended to be a substitute for professional investing advice. Always seek the advice of your financial advisor or other qualified financial service provider with any questions you may have regarding your investment planning.